mean, Mary herself said, we were anxious for where you were. That anxiety is something that all parents have to deal with. But as Jesus so nicely handled his mother, that God is so nicely handling us, and being able to say that your child has a purpose and your child has a plan. Welcome to Single Scripture Today. My name is Jessica Heilman from Jessica Builds TV, and I am sharing with you today in this second part of this series about a time when Mary lost her son Jesus and was afraid that he was not okay. I think that it's probably a very normal response if you lose your child to be afraid. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about that story, and we're going to go into a little bit of how Jesus responded to Mary, and maybe we can apply it to our own understanding that God has a purpose and God has a plan for all of our children. And so for today's scripture, for Single Scripture Today, I'm going to read Jeremiah 29:11. It's a popular verse among believers, but maybe you haven't heard it yet, and this word will be inspiring to you today. So the scripture says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." He has a plan for you. He has been thinking about you and your child, and he has put that seed of that person into history for a specific time and a specific reason. And there is a plan that God has for you, and there's a plan that God has for our children. How we're going to overcome fear today in raising our kids is we're going to relax that desire, maybe that instinct that we have to be afraid that our children are going to be okay. And we're going to take an opportunity to just take a breath and to just deep breathe through the revelation and the realization that God has a purpose, not just for us, but he also has a purpose for our children. So the scripture starts in Luke 2, and we're going to start with verse 41, and it reads like this. Every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. It's a tradition, and this is talking directly about Jesus. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. After the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then, and I'm imagining that they probably, since this is something that they've done it as a caravan. They've got a bunch of people with them. They've got Jesus's siblings with them, because by now he's 12 and Mary has had other children with Joseph. So it's probably quite a trip, because they had to travel in. They brought other people. It was customary for everybody to come in from Passover. So Jesus is not there, and they haven't realized it at this point. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. Verse 45, when they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." And then in verse 49, Jesus answers by saying, "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with men. So I find it very interesting here that this is a scripture which tells all of us that Mary was human. She's Jesus' mother, but she's just a mom. And she and her husband, Joseph, got a little freaked out because they did not know what Jesus was up to. They did not know where he was. They had not had an understanding of what Jesus was up to. However, when they found Jesus, Jesus looked at her, his mother, and he said, "Don't you know that I need to be in my Father's house?" He was delicately reminding her that God had a plan for him. And I think that that's important today, especially if you have children that are older, and maybe you have children that are young adults that have gone out and they're going to college and they're doing things, and you're not able to be, it's different from when they were little kids, when they were toddlers and you had them just snuggled up in their little beds and you knew when they went to sleep and when they woke up. As you have growing children, and as you have children that are going from teenage into young adult age, being able to understand that you can sleep fear-free, that you can understand completely that they have a promise, that they have a purpose, that God has a plan for their life, and being able to see that, anxiety, Mary herself said, we were anxious for where you were, that anxiety is something that all parents have to deal with, but as Jesus so nicely handled his mother, that God is so nicely handling us, and being able to say that your child has a purpose, and your child, and that you just continue to pray for them, and you just continue to believe the best for them, and you continue to lead them by example, that you, as you walk fully in your plan and your purpose for your life, you're showing them that you have confidence that their plan and their purpose for their life, that they will be successful and that they will succeed, and that there is no reason to have to be anxious or have to be worried about the future and about where our children are, when we know that God is watching them 24/7. God's got their back, he's got your back, and he's got your children's back as well. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for supporting Jessica Builds TV, and thank you for following us and subscribing on YouTube. I really appreciate it. It encourages me to be able to see that these messages are going out there and getting shared and getting spread. I appreciate you so much. I'm praying for you. I'm believing for good things for you. God bless you, and have an awesome rest of your day.